Welcome to our viewers here in the United States and around the world. I'm Wolf Blitzer with a Situation Room special report. Tonight, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi isn't letting Donald Trump's Senate acquittal be the last word on the Capitol insurrection. She just announced that Congress will establish an independent commission like it did after 9/11 to investigate the facts and causes of what happened here in Washington on January 6th. This, as President Biden is now eager for lawmakers to focus on getting COVID relief legislation passed now that the impeachment trial is over. The president is getting ready to hit the road to sell his $1.9 trillion plan with an appearance at a CNN town hall in Wisconsin tomorrow night. Meantime, some Republicans are struggling to move on as Trump's acquittal has deepened the divide inside the party. And as the former president himself is facing mounting legal trouble, including the possibility of criminal prosecution for his role in the Capitol riot. Let's start our coverage this hour with our chief White House correspondent, Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, after the distraction of the Trump impeachment trial, the clock is now ticking for President Biden and Democrats to pass the emergency COVID-19 relief package.
It is, Wolf, and they are hoping to do so by next month. That is going to be the new focus in Washington because President Biden has been in office for almost a month now, but so much of that time has been defined by this split screen that he was sharing with his predecessor as that trial was ongoing. But now that it's behind him, this is the big focus. And of course, as he has pushed for bipartisanship, and some of his allies still say that is something that he is trying to achieve while he is president. Right now, one of his biggest priorities is this new piece of legislation, this coronavirus relief bill, and so far, still no Republican support, Wolf.
In accordance with
the distraction of former President Trump's impeachment trial behind him, President Joe Biden is forging ahead with his agenda. Following a weekend at Camp David, Biden returned to the White House with one item at the top of his list, getting his COVID relief bill through Congress.
President Biden is not willing to wait.
Republican lawmakers still overwhelmingly oppose Biden's $1.9 trillion plan, and his top aides say he's building support within the GOP, just not in Washington, D.C.
Look, I was looking at that the other day. We have many Republican mayors, we have Republican governors, we have more than 50% of Republicans in this country. There's just one place that we don't have anybody who has signed on yet, and that's in the United States Congress.
But Biden ran his campaign promising to bring unity to Washington. Democrat Senator Chris Coons, a close ally of his, says Biden will keep pushing for bipartisanship even if his first major piece of legislation isn't.
We can proceed with a Democrat-only bill. President Biden is uniting the American people. He is moving forward on relief that has the support of 3/4 of the American people.
Biden's top health officials are also pushing for the passage of his stimulus bill, arguing that schools need more resources to reopen.
I think that the schools really do need more resources, and that's the reason why the National Relief Act that we're talking about getting passed, we need that. The schools need more resources.
On Friday, the CDC issued new guidance for reopening schools.
Most disease in school does not come from in-school transmission, but comes from outside into the community.
CDC Director Dr. Walensky says they are not mandating that schools reopen, but the guidance the CDC issued appears to have created more questions than it's answered about how and when to do so.
Can you point to any scientific reasons for students in the United States not to return to in-person classes tomorrow as long as schools are taking the 5 steps?
I think if you look at what's, as you noted, there's 90% of communities with this high rate of transmission going on right now, and we really don't want to bring community disease into the classroom.
Top White House aides said they were not involved in the making of the new guidance.
I can assure you the White House is not directing the CDC on how they're to determine their guidelines.
Meanwhile, starting today, Biden reopened the Affordable Care Act's federal insurance marketplaces for 3 months. The White House says it will give millions of Americans affected by the pandemic another chance to buy health care plans.
We just want to use every tool in the toolkit to make sure that people are covered in the middle of this pandemic.
Now, Wolf, Biden's top health officials are going to be pressed this week on what the clarity of that CDC guidance is, given just, of course, how crucial reopening the schools are. But right now, the focus is going to be on this COVID-19 legislation. The House is drafting it. It's going to go to the Senate next, and they're hoping to have a final version of it on President Biden's desk by as soon as next month. And then, of course, they'll take the turn to his other priorities while in office. But first, it's that bill, and he is going to be hitting the road this week to sell it, starting with the CNN town hall tomorrow night.
Clearly, that's a top priority. Caitlin, thank you very much. We're going to hear much more from President Biden when he takes part in CNN's exclusive town hall, the first since he took office. It airs live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on CNN. Now to the aftermath of the Trump impeachment trial and plans for an independent commission of inquiry to investigate the Capitol insurrection. Our congressional correspondent Ryan Nobles is working the story for us. So Ryan, what could this commission be all about? Tell us about it.
Well, this news came this morning, I should say, when Speaker Pelosi sent a letter to her colleagues saying that she'd like to take the next step in forming a 9/11-style commission that looks into everything that led to and the aftermath of the January 6th Capitol insurrection. And Pelosi said this came out of the ongoing conversations and the investigation that Lieutenant General Russell Honore has been conducting at Pelosi's request. And Pelosi said, quote, "It is clear from his findings and from the impeachment trial that we must get to the truth of how this happened." Now, this commission would be set up by statute. That means it would be a law that would be passed by both the House and Senate and then signed by President Biden. The goal would be for this to be a completely independent commission with no sitting members of Congress or the government involved, and said these will all be outside, nonpartisan observers, experts in their field that would look into exactly what happened. The other thing that the Speaker has said that she would like this commission to be is much more diverse than the 9/11 commission was, which was only one woman. Every single person on the committee back then was white. She'd like this version of it to be much more diverse and feature both men and women. This process, of course, Wolf, just beginning.
Yeah, this is so important. They got to learn the lessons of what happened on that dark day in American history to make sure it doesn't ever happen again. Even after Trump's acquittal, Ryan, he could still face some very serious criminal charges related to the Capitol riot. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's right, Wolf. You know, when we pressed Republican senators about their decision not to convict the former president, they often did not talk about his actions. It was much more of a process question because they said that the impeachment process could not continue in the U.S. Senate because the former president was no longer in office. And many Republicans, including the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, suggested that he could still be subject to criminal charges. And there are a number of avenues for that to happen. Of course, Washington, D.C.'s Attorney General has said that they may be looking into criminal charges as a result of how the president conducted himself on that day. And there's also other legal problems that Trump could be facing. Multiple criminal and civil investigations into his conduct in a number of states. Of course, the Georgia Secretary of State has said that they are looking into that phone call that he made right after the presidential election, asking the Georgia Secretary of State to essentially find votes to declare him the winner there. And then, of course, there are also fraud investigations into his business dealings with the Trump Organization that are happening in New York, specifically through the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. And what's important to point out about this, Wolf, is that many of these investigations were stalled to a certain extent because Trump was president of the United States. He's no longer president of the United States. He is a private citizen. And so that means that many of these investigations can now push forward.
Yeah, he presumably is going to need a lot of lawyers, a lot of legal fees to deal with all these investigations. Ryan, stay with us.